In his free time, he collects
Jared Adedero. On the 2nd of October 1999 at around 11:30 in the morning, two men came across a very young boy while fishing at a campsite on the Big South Trail, which is a part of the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forest in Colorado. And while running into a lone child in the middle of nowhere is cause for concern, the two fishermen saw a group of hikers about 80 to 90 feet ahead. They figured that the child was a part of that group since after a brief conversation, the child ran off toward the group they saw. This child was 3-year-old Jared Adedero, and this was the last time anyone would ever see him again. To understand how a 3-year-old even ended up in that situation, we have to take a step back and examine the life of his father, Alan Adedero. Alan was a divorced, single father who was taking care of his two children, the 3-year-old son Jared and a 6-year-old daughter Jocelyn. Earlier that year, Alan had become deeply involved with a local religious organization known as the Christian Singles Network Group. By October, he was hosting 11 members of this group along with his two children at a resort he co-owned with his brother. On the day of the incident, the kids wanted to go on a trip to see a fish hatchery with the group. Alan was a bit reluctant at first to let them go, but ultimately caved in when members of the group assured him that they'd only visit the hatchery and come right back with the kids. However, for reasons that remain unclear, unbeknownst to Alan, the planned visit unexpectedly transformed into a 15-mile hike along the Big South Trail commencing at around 10 a.m. Taking two young kids on a lengthy hike without their father's permission, this was mistake number one. The second, and arguably the worst mistake the group made, was that no one took explicit responsibility for the kids. Everyone just assumed that someone else was looking after Jared and Jocelyn, when in reality no one was. To make matters worse, the hikers had split into two groups, those walking faster and those lagging behind. This separation made it nearly impossible to keep track of the kids' whereabouts. About an hour and a half into the hike, Jared reportedly interacted with two fishermen before running off towards a group of hikers. Now, this is where things get a bit murky. From what I can gather, it's unclear whether he was somewhere between the two hiking groups or if he had already passed them entirely. The hikers seen by the fishermen might not have even been a part of the same group. Sadly, this was the point where Jared vanished. However, it wasn't until 12:15 p.m. that the Christian group realized that they hadn't seen him for over an hour. Panic set in, and some members of the group rushed back to the resort to inform Alan. He wasted no time, immediately driving frantically to the trail while beating his chest and saying, quote, "They lost my baby, they lost my baby." In the meantime, his resort manager filed a missing person report and got the rangers involved in the search. Since this was a fairly active hiking trail, the rangers in the area had plenty of experience finding missing people. So much so that the sheriff at the time stated, "Absolutely, I thought we would find him. Yes, it was a child, but my thought was we should be able to get in there with our people and do what we do and what we have done hundreds of times, find the person. It might take a few hours to find the child crying or hiding someplace nearby, but we would be done before midnight." He even instructed his subordinates to wake him up when they found Jared, but the news never came. After almost a full day of searching, Jared remained missing and the hopes of finding him alive began to wane. Things went from bad to worse when the helicopter that was searching for Jared stalled 100 feet in the air and crashed, injuring all 5 of its passengers. By October 7th, over 200 professional searchers, a dozen dog teams, professional trackers, a dive team, and a plane were doing everything they could to locate Jared, or at least find some clue that could answer his mysterious disappearance. Tragically, after 5 grueling days with no leads, the search for Jared came to a heartbreaking halt on the 8th of October. It became a massive story in the media and even led to the Colorado governor signing the Amber Alert plan into law. Jared's case, however, remained completely cold. That is, until June 4, 2003, when 2 hikers named Gary Watts and Rob Osborne found some tattered clothes and a sneaker about 500 feet above Jared's last known location. The pair already knew about his disappearance, so they instantly made the connection and contacted the authorities. What followed was a more thorough search of the area, and 10 days later, searchers made a grim discovery: a molar and a part of a human skull. DNA tests confirmed what Jared's family feared. These remains were his. They also confirmed that the clothing belonged to him, the same clothes Jared wore on the day he disappeared. After nearly 4 years of his disappearance, Jared's family finally had some closure. But even with these new discoveries, the question remains, what really happened to Jared? The most straightforward explanation is that he wandered off in the mountains, got lost, and eventually succumbed to hypothermia. But there's a problem with that theory. The spot where his clothes and remains were found is nearly inaccessible. It's extremely steep and rocky terrain that would be challenging for an adult to navigate, let alone a 3-year-old child. The most plausible theory is that he was attacked by a cougar. These animals are native to the area, and while they rarely attack humans, a small child could easily become a target. During the investigation, some of the hikers in the 11-member group also reported hearing a distant scream during that time, including Jared's sister Jocelyn. So, if the cougar theory is true, it would explain both the scream and how Jared's remains got so far from his last known position. And while it is pretty convincing, there are some inconsistencies in the animal attack premise that I find difficult to justify. For starters, researchers did not find any blood or cougar remains like hair on Jared's clothes. How can that be possible? What's even more puzzling is that Jared's pants were inside out when they were found in the forest. I can't think of any logical way a cougar, or any animal for that matter, could turn a pair of pants inside out. Not to mention the fact that the pair of sneakers they found were in excellent condition, considering they would have gone through 4 winters in the Colorado mountains. All of this points to a far more disturbing theory, according to which Jared was actually abducted and later killed by another person. And the reason his sneakers were in such good shape was because the kidnapper likely scattered Jared's remains on the mountain years after the incident. I realize this is a horrifying thought, but it's really the only plausible explanation that accounts for all these strange details. Unfortunately, even with all the evidence we have, Jared's case remains as much of a mystery today as it was the day he disappeared. And the truth of what happened to him may never be known. Paulette Gabarra-Farah. On the 21st of March 2010, the Gabarra family returned from a trip to their home in Mexico. That evening, the parents tucked their 2 daughters into bed, unaware it would be the last time they'd see one of them alive. The following morning, the family's nanny, Erica, entered 4-year-old Paulette Gabarra-Farah's room to wake her, only to find the bed empty. She could not find the 4-year-old girl anywhere in her room. She turned everything upside down while searching for Paulette before finally alerting the mother of the kids, Lizette Farah. Lizette quickly informed the authorities, and they started investigating the little girl's disappearance almost immediately. However, this case was unlike anything they had seen before. Paulette had severe physical disabilities, so she couldn't have gone anywhere on her own. But the investigators didn't find any evidence of someone breaking into the house and kidnapping her either. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. So, after exhausting all of her options, the Attorney General's office quickly put together a poster explaining Paulette's situation and plastered it everywhere in the region. Lizette's sister, Arlette, also posted a few pictures on social media. Surprisingly, these social media posts went super viral, turning the disappearance of Paulette into a national headline. In the evening, Lizette even released a message on television to the potential abductors, asking them to return her daughter. She claimed that they could leave Paulette in a shopping center or some other crowded place and the family would not press any charges against them. Sadly, none of these efforts amounted to anything. That is until 9 days later on March 31st, when the little girl's lifeless body was discovered back where it all began, her own room. It was stuck between the mattress and the foot of the bed. On the surface, this should have been the end of Paulette's case. However, the inconsistencies surrounding her disappearance were too significant to ignore. For starters, how is it possible that no one noticed the little girl's body just feet from where she was supposed to be asleep? The Gabara house was investigated by professionals who also used highly trained dogs. How could they miss something so obvious in their search? Most importantly, how did no one who visited her room notice the smell? As a comment on YouTube mentions, I found a body once. It was in a basement apartment and we went to do a checkup on her due to a smell complaint. Flies were everywhere and they were huge. The smell was thick and it stuck to everything. It was a hot and humid summer. She had been dead for 3 days. There is no way that Paulette was in that room for 9 days and no one noticed. The smell of death literally gets everywhere. Now, if the room was immediately taped off after Paulette's disappearance, all of this could have been potentially explained as nothing more than incompetence by the investigators. But in reality, the room had many visitors in the days after the incident, including guests who slept in that same bed for multiple nights. Lizette even gave an interview sitting on top of the bed where Paulette's body was later found. How did she not notice? The only logical explanation for all of these questions is that Paulette's body wasn't under the mattress during the initial searches. Instead, it was placed there later by someone, possibly one or both of her parents. According to the official coroner report, Paulette moved onto the bed on her own and fell headfirst into the gap between the mattress and the frame. There, she asphyxiated and passed away before her nanny Erica came looking for her in the morning. But the evidence contradicting this official statement is a bit overwhelming. For instance, when the rescuers found Paulette, she was wearing dark trousers with a pink giraffe pattern. However, Lizette clearly showed the same trousers just days earlier while showing Paulette's belongings during the interview.
No, esa es la piña migrante. Ok. Ya ni quedó ese que tengo, porque no voy a morir. Más vale, ¿verdad? Pero mejor ni la reforma ni la sacamos.
What's even more concerning is that during the official video where the authorities found the body, the investigators also uncover multiple bloodstains hidden in the sheets.
Mickey Mouse.
Mouse. Mouse.
Mouse. It's me. It's
No. No. Danger.
Say, you want
No. It doesn't matter what you think.
Clubhouse?
Bad touch.
No. Say, you want to come at my clubhouse? At my clubhouse? Say, you want to come inside my clubhouse?